as we build our relationships with others, even with things, places, understand that those relationships, many of them we seek out, many of them we wish to have. We wish to have a certain kind of relationship. We wish to have certain kinds of connections with people. And we have had certain kinds of relationships with people. And oftentimes the relationships we've had with people weren't in alignment or weren't, ideal compared to the relationships we're seeking. And what I want to share with you is this understanding that your relationships with everybody is a reflection of yourself. Now, this isn't about you blaming yourself. This isn't about you taking fault, blame, shame, or guilt about how one of or many of your relationships have gone, because that doesn't serve you. This is about learning. This is about acknowledging. This is about practicing self-awareness, so that way you can tap into your truer self and you can learn from what has happened. So that way, when you learn from what's happened, you can then use that information, that insight of growth, of tapping into your potentiality to actually create the relationships that you have been desiring, dreaming about, wanting, right? But it takes work. You don't just stumble across these amazing relationships that you're seeking. Now, and these relationships can be a romantic relationship. They could be platonic relationships. They can be just relationships with you and another person, a coworker, anything. But realize that it is always a reflection of you. And though you may say, well, I don't have control over what other people do, how they feel, the trauma that they have dealt with, and this is true, but you do have control over yourself. And when you take the lead in relationships that you care about, then it puts you in a position to actually nurture, to caress and care for that relationship in a way that allows that person to feel safe, to actually not let whatever drama or trauma that they have to deal with and all their issues can actually be a sense of healing for them. And that's what the relationships are really intended for. We're social beings, and our relationships are really intended for growth. Our relationships are intended for us to, again, tap into the truest essence of ourselves and be who we're meant to be. But many of us we create these blocks, and sometimes rightfully so, based on trauma, based on past experiences. But those blocks prevent us from connecting with other people who can actually support us in our spiritual growth and our spiritual journey. So though it is not about you taking accountability for them, because you can't do that, but you can take full accountability for yourself. You can take full accountability, own the fact that your journey and the relationships that you desire are up to you, because you lay the groundwork. If you take ownership, instead of saying, well, this person is drama, this person is this, or I don't like that this person does that, and you keep blaming it on them, then you don't give yourself the opportunity to create the relationships that you want. But if you say then, well, I like this person, there's something about this person, I'm going to actually break down, take away my defenses, because I can get hurt. You can't get hurt unless you allow yourself to get hurt. But if you go into a relationship and you have this understanding that, hey, make sure you have your boundaries and your standards. And then once you do that, you pursue this relationship with this person with the mindset that they can be in a safe environment with you, because you're not fearful of getting hurt, right? You don't have an expectation of them that it may be unrealistic or may be something that will actually, create pain and suffering for you. So you have to be mindful about certain things like your own trauma, your own self-awareness. Be mindful about your expectations from people, because a lot of times our arguments, our fights, our breakups with people they're based and they come from an expectation that wasn't communicated effectively and wasn't understood effectively. And so as you communicate and as you engage with individuals, right, depending on, and there's various degrees of relationships. So you have to ask yourself, is this appropriate for this kind of relationship? Then you have to clarify what your expectations are. And it doesn't have to be confrontational or aggressive. It can be very chill. It can be very, empathetic and compassionate and loving. And that's the way it should be, because that's how you create safety for the other person. And that's how you help healing for the other person and healing for yourself as well. One of the things I've learned best and most about relationships is not to have an expectation of what people do unless we have communicated those expectations. And also we have put into time the practice of the understanding of those, expectations. You see, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the opportunity of educating each other on how you both do things. And oftentimes people will meet, they will hit it off, and then something just doesn't click right. And without communicating, without acknowledging, without discussing it, they simply just cut each other off. And that does you a disservice, because there you had the opportunity to build yourself up and build up your relationship skills to be the best version of yourself in communicating with that person. So be mindful about that. Be mindful about how you connect with people and acknowledging that the things that people are going through that you have issues with, it is not them. The issues are yours, so it is you. And that is the opportunity for you to actually look within yourself and ask yourself, why am I responding to this? Why am I acting this way? Why am I feeling this way based on what they did? What is about them or what they're doing, right, that is pulling the trigger for me, that is pressing a button within me? Because as long as people can annoy you, bother you, right, that means that these people are essentially the lead. They're in charge. They have power over you. And though you want to be mindful about not feeling like, I don't want people to have power over me, and you don't want to feed into that trauma, but essentially you want to own the fact that this is an opportunity for you to grow, to see and understand, okay, this is a trigger for me. And when this is a trigger for me, then I can look at it and evaluate it and see why and heal from it. Because if it's a trigger, that means there's trauma there. So once you can acknowledge it and you can work through it, then that doesn't have to be a trigger for you anymore. And therefore, that person has served you in a great way in helping to heal you from your trauma. And you do the same thing for other people. But since, they may be triggered by something you do, you can't just tell them, oh, that's your stuff, right? You have to deal with that. No, you still want to be compassionate. You still want to be empathetic, and you still want to be loving to their journey, because they may not be ready to own the fact that it is theirs, right? That is their trauma. That is their process. You still want to be a loving and kind and gentle individual along this journey, because healing relationships, they work hand in hand. But you have to position yourself to understand that you are in charge and you are in control of your own healing and your own connections and your own development and leadership skills throughout your relationships. So be the lead, but be in charge and be the leader that acknowledges their own inadequacies and, skills that may not be developed yet, and actually use that as an opportunity to become a better person. And acknowledge that person for helping you do that, whether they know it or not. You know what I mean? Like just be kind to them because they have given you that opportunity to grow. It doesn't have to be, oh, you helped me heal because you pulled triggers that I just couldn't deal with and I had to figure it out and learn to heal from it. Thank you for pulling my triggers. No, you just simply acknowledge them by being kind and giving them the opportunity to heal themselves by just being a part of their life in a way that is loving and generous and kind. All right. So acknowledge that all relationships are reflections of yourself. If you find that you don't like people, then you have to look into that. If you find that you don't get along with a certain type of person, you have to look into that. Oftentimes for me, if for some reason I'm not connecting with another individual or something about them that's just not, gives me the shakes or gives me, the chills, I actually pursue engaging with that individual on purpose because I know that there is an opportunity for me to grow. And when I do that, I come to find out that I really actually like this person. You just have to get through all the messiness and the messy feelings that you may initially feel when you engage with that person. Now, mind you, you want to listen to your intuition, your gut, your feelings, and acknowledge that, okay, there may be something about this person that I can't fully trust them with everything about myself. Okay, you have to put up healthy boundaries. And when you put up healthy boundaries, then you can engage in a way that is responsible for both of you. All right. So relationships are reflections. Thank you so much. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.